Good morning, everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day. My name is Rachel. My pronouns are she, her. I'm your volunteer choir director, and I'm also a member of the HVUUC band, and today I will also be your flight attendant. A couple items of business before we get started and invite the choir up for our opening hymn. First off, if you are visiting us for the very first time, you are especially welcome, and we are so happy to see your faces here. Our greeters that are back there by the visitors table will be able to help you get oriented if you have any questions at all. Also, our greeters can help you if you have children from the age of 6 and under. Take your children to the nursery. That service is available for you throughout the entirety of our service this morning. Our services are filmed and they are put on YouTube. If you do not wish to be on camera, you can sit in the sections where there are perfume-free zones, which are over here, and also over here. And also the section right there closest to the library is not going to be filmed as well. At this time, if you all would not mind, please silence your cell phones. Our opening hymn is going to be number 145 in your gray hymnal. You are more welcome to sing and join us by standing or sitting and singing and joining us in opening hymn number 145 in your gray hymnal. At this time, I'm going to welcome our choir up here. I'm going to step over, and we're going to get our service started.
Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Wanda, and I'm your service leader for this morning. If you are with us, and you may be with us on the internet, and be aware if we do put our services on YouTube, or if you're here present this morning, I welcome you because we are a community united in our commitment to each other and our commitment to live out our principles throughout the world. Welcome. It is always a nice thing to have a guest speaker that belongs to our church, and that's what we have today. Our guest speaker is Sophia, and she is a member of our church and a part of the RE Collaborative. As an Appalachian native, working mom, and first-generation college student, she has seen the impact of poverty and lost opportunity in her personal life and the community at large. Sophia hopes to increase awareness about barriers facing Appalachia and here at our own church and broader into the UUA at large. Her interesting topic is Universalist Love, Widening the Circle. She explores how her exploration of Unitarian Universalist history reveals classic roots in disenfranchising the poor and working class among our ranks and in our communities. She'll help us examine our part and discuss how to move forward in our mission to widen that circle for all. We move into a sacred part of our service, which is our chalice lighting. And our chalice represents the light of reason, the warmth of our community, and the flame of hope. Ponder these words by Thomas Starr King as Phoenix lights our chalice. The Universalists believe that God is too good to damn humanity, while the Unitarians believe that humanity is too good to be damned by God. We welcome you, old friends and new. You are an essential part of our celebration today, whether this is your first visit with us or whether you have uncounted visits today. We are one people with many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Our church, just like all churches, has a budget. And this is the time of year that we collect our pledges that will enable our board to set up an operating budget for the coming year, which starts in June 2024 and goes through May 2025. It always helps to know the amount of money that we're working with, so we'll know what programs can exist and what we can add to our services. And a big shout out from the stewardship trustee, Greg. If you've already sent him your acknowledgement of your pledge, he says thank you for that early announcement. We are about 63% of our goal, so we're doing real well with letting him know, but you have until next week to make your final announcement. But we'll take your pledge at any time, so if you miss that date, don't worry. But one thing that's really nice about our pledge drive time is that we have an opportunity to hear a voice in addition to watching money, budget numbers on a spreadsheet. And for that, we have a testimonial from one of our members that says why it's important to pledge. And she's going to share that with us now and listen up to see if it fits what you think is important to the pledge drive. So please help me welcome Chelsea.
Good morning. My name is Chelsea, and I've been coming to this church for about 2 years now. I was asked to make a few remarks this morning about why I pledged to this church. And I've made it no secret that getting up and speaking in front of a crowd is really not my idea of a good time. But I agreed anyway because I recognize the importance of contributing and seeing this community grow and thrive. I grew up going to a Christian church, and like many in this congregation, I became disillusioned with religion over time and stopped going altogether once I moved out on my own. As time went on, though, I started to feel that pull toward something familiar. I found myself missing that ritual and the fellowship, even though I didn't miss the dogma and the guilt that's often associated. I found Unitarian Universalism while trying to figure out what I was willing to compromise in my beliefs in order to feel that sense of community. But what I found instead was this place where I don't have to compromise at all. Here at HVUUC, I have found greater spiritual connection than I ever did before. And what is equally important to me is providing a safe place for my children and myself to ask the big questions. Reverend Tiffany said something a couple weeks ago that really stuck with me. She said, some people go to church to find answers, while Unitarian Universalists go to church to ask questions. It's hard to ignore the Christian stronghold on East Tennessee, and I want my children to make up their own minds about their beliefs. But I know they must be educated about religion to do that. That's why I encourage them to come with me each week And my hope as they get older is that they'll continue to be filled with more and more questions and curiosity about the world around them. Some of my favorite things about this community have included helping out with the children's RE, the caring team, and the stewardship committee. I've soaked up opportunities to normalize LGBTQIA identities in my kids' perception of the world and teach them about the importance of advocating for social justice. And I was more than impressed with the chance to recently enroll my kids in age-appropriate sex education here at church. That is such an amazing gift that we have here. So I pledged to HVUUC because this place is truly special to me in a world that's not always so easy to navigate. It's a place where I feel safe to be myself, to learn, to be curious, and to take a break from my busy life. It's a place I want to continue to do great things in the world I know, and that takes some financial support. Pledging ensures that I will give equally throughout the year, even if I occasionally miss a few services, and I feel good about where my money is going. I've been so encouraged to see the growth and excitement here in just the past 2 years that I've been coming, and I really encourage you, if you have yet to make a pledge, you can fill out a card or send an email to stewardship@hvuuc.org with your pledge. And I really look forward to continuing to see what we can accomplish over the next year. Thank you.
And these nice pledge cards can be located on the side table there. And Greg reminds me that we can just fold these and drop them into the collection plate on your way out. So please feel free to do that. Another thing that I really like about this church is there's always somebody willing to pick up the slack where we need that, and that's the case today. A reader of our Time for All Ages story was out sick, and lo and behold, immediately we got a volunteer. Cindy said, "Of course I can do that," just like many of you often do, and I'm so proud of the fact that we have people that are willing to step up and do that. So a big thank you to Cindy today. The Time for All Ages is an opportunity to invite our kids, youth, and their parents to join us up here in front of the candles, where we're going to learn a little bit more about what the UU Church is all about. So Cindy, take it away. We move into a segment of our service that is very sacred to me. And it is an opportunity for us to share our joys and our sorrows in our church family. And by doing so, we strengthen ourselves and each other by offering our support. We share our moments of joys and sorrows through 3 ways. One is by completing this very nice candles card. And you may find them back on the side table there. And you can write out your information, but we ask when you do that you make sure you indicate whether you'd like to have that information shared, or else the minister will just hold that close and share it with the caring team. As we light our first candle, you may do your second way of expressing your joys and concern is by a silent candle. And by that means you can enter from one side or the other, and the candle keepers will make sure that you have an opportunity to light your own candle. We would like for you to light the ones in the back first, so we don't have to get out the fire extinguisher for anybody that lights one in the front. And the other way is that I'll make sure that a candle is lit for you if you will just raise your hand, and I will acknowledge your desire, and then we'll light a candle for you. So those 3 opportunities you have of expressing your joys and sorrow. And we know that our community is much larger than those who are here with us in this building. So we light a candle to hold space for those who are not physically present, but are forever in our hearts. You may come now from both sides or raise your hand if you have. And I have the opportunity of reading a candle card that I received this morning. The candle card says, "I'm so happy that our church family member, Greg Kramer, was recognized by the State Sierra Club newsletter for his work as the co-designer and co-leader and builder of the new Jacobs Nature Park Bridge. Thank you for your dedication and hard work and leadership, Greg." There's an article back in the kitchen when you have your coffee to take a look at that, and thank you so much, Greg, for all the work that you do. So we light a final candle for all that remains unspoken in our hearts and on our minds. As Unitarian Universalists, our journey is to transform the big and the small, to transform ourselves, and to transform the world. Universalism means this: no one is outside the circle of love. No one is disposable. No one is outside the circle of love, and no one is disposable. We stubbornly seek out the spark of the divine and each other, no matter what. Interdependence means none of us is truly free until we are all free, and our thriving is bound up in the earth's thriving. None of us is truly free until we're all free. We struggle with liberation from the violence of white supremacy, sexism, ableism, classism, and heterosexism. Our covenants mean that we make promises to our communities to honor love and justice for all. We promise to honor love and justice for all else. And for ones of us that have no musical talent at all, it is always a gift when we hear music. So we are echoing Sophia's theme of widening the circle when our choir sings Building Bridges. It's their gift to us. You may stay seated and enjoy the music, but if the Spirit moves you, feel free to sing along. It's in the teal smaller hymnal, number 1023.
If you've spent any length of time in a Unitarian Universalist gathering, you've likely heard the phrase, widen the circle. If you're unfamiliar, widening the circle refers to becoming a more inclusive faith where individuals are welcome and embraced across differing socioeconomic, racial, ethnic, gender, and sexual identities. Here at Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, we thrive on being a liberal bastion of ideas and action for Northeast Tennessee. Our church organized a charter bus full of folks to march on Washington with the Poor People's Campaign. We have long-standing ties with Kitchen of Hope to prepare meals for the unhoused, and frequently table events like Tri-Pride to show solidarity for underrepresented and marginalized communities. These are all things that should be celebrated, and are just a few reasons I'm proud to be a member of HVUUC. I've attended services at this congregation for 5 years and have seen marked improvements in many areas. Greater young adult engagement, the inclusion and normalization of skeptics and non-theists in service, the formation of atheist group, and access to greater child care offerings let me form connections with other congregants. The culmination of these positive changes led me to join the church last spring. Even though I am happy with the community I found, I believe we still have room to grow. One area of personal interest that I rarely see addressed is classism within our faith as a whole and how this impacts our relationships with each other. To tackle this subject, I would like to give an introductory address of the history of our Christian, Unitarian, and Universalist ancestors. I believe we can see similar parallels between these historic attitudes and those currently within our congregation and the UUA as a whole. The Christian Unitarians and Universalists were two distinct Christian denominations that gained traction and flourished under the conditions found in colonial America. The Unitarians believed in a singular God, denying the existence of the Trinity, whereas the Universalists believed in universal salvation and denied the existence of hell. Even though both denominations can be compared as two Christian heresies with more liberal views and faith to their Baptist and Calvinist counterparts, it's important to note that overall beliefs and makeup of each denomination were very different. Unitarians took a very individualistic and measured approach to worship in their denomination. All ministers were expected to have a college education, preferably from Harvard, and give sermons that were intellectually stimulating but very measured in delivery. In other words, Unitarians rejected the revival style of the Well, we're gonna move some stuff around. All right. They rejected the revival style preaching that was popular for the time in Baptist and Universalist circles, deeming them too uncultured and fanatical. Alpheus Harding, a Unitarian minister in a failing rural Unitarian church, sent a letter to the American Unitarian Association stating his congregation had little in the way of material wealth, and his congregants were not a reading people. Harding felt that the failure of his congregants to subscribe to liberal religious education materials showed their lack of intelligence and would ultimately be why his congregation dissolved. This minister's failure to realize a change in approach would be necessary was mimicked in rural communities across New England. Soon, most Unitarians were populated in major cities, and rural outreach was largely forgotten. Unitarians were mainly in the upper strata of society. From meticulous record keeping by older Unitarian churches and public records available, it was found that Unitarian church members were in the top 10% of their town's income brackets and were frequently the largest property holders in their cities. Before the term upper middle class and rich was commonly used, the upper echelon of society was simply known as the elite. These elite Unitarians held positions of power in Boston and throughout New England, dominating the political, religious, and industrial sectors. At first glance, this could be seen as a positive. Unitarians were one of the most religiously liberal denominations of the day, whose theology espoused trusting the scientific method and critical thinking about matters of the natural world and spiritual development. In theory, Unitarians believed that all people could seek spiritual truths, but the classist structure of their congregations led to most outsiders being turned away. In the 1800s, Unitarians still paid for pews in their respective congregations, with the poor or middling class of people ostracized entirely or forced to sit in the back of the church building, commonly with slaves. Furthermore, due to the disconnect of the churchgoers with the working class, there was often a warped view of workers' struggles and abilities. William Ellery Channing, one of the most prolific Unitarian ministers in our history, was no exception. After reading a paper from his colleague Orestes Bronson about the struggles of the laboring classes, Channing expressed to his wife that he believed the minister had exaggerated the struggles they were facing. He stated that the working class had an easier time than merchants and lawyers, since they did not aspire as highly and would be less disappointed with their failures. Oh, there's more. Channing was later quoted saying, "No good can come from a spread of intellectual and moral power among all classes." Unitarians at the time were exceptionally fickle about social issues, Abolition, temperance, early feminist organizing, and labor disputes were all received with mixed opinions and muted support from ministers and congregations alike. In fact, many ministers who tried to take a more radical stand were forced out of the pulpit. Minister John Pierpoint gave a particularly impassioned service about standing with the temperance and abolition movements. For this, he was slowly but deliberately pushed out of the pulpit, with breweries in Boston buying up pews, so he was faced with an empty room every Sunday. There were disjointed attempts to bridge the obvious class divide that had formed. Bernard Whitman was called to a church in Waltham, Massachusetts in 1826, where the education of men and women working at the nearby textile mill became part of his ministerial duties. Over the next year, he helped establish the Female Charitable Society, and by 1828 had made plans to give his parishioners access to free books by opening a public library. Another class-conscious Unitarian minister was Joseph Tuckerman. Wanting everyone, regardless of class, to reach their highest potential and to establish greater communication and friendships between classes, Tuckerson started his ministry at large, opening community centers throughout Boston. He promoted educational skills like sewing and map making. This helped the working class and destitute gain employable skills while fostering relationships between them and the volunteers from the elite. This ministry at large continues to this day as the Unitarian Urban Ministry. These reformers in Unitarian society, however, were the exception and were not the rule. In the Universalist camp, however, things were much different. For starters, the tent revival preaching and Universalist circuit riders led to a wide range of interest from people in the working and middle class. Farmers and rural folks that had felt disenfranchised within Unitarian congregations, and those looking for an alternative to Baptist and Calvinist churches found a home within the liberal, populist theology that was found in the Universalist message. For practical reasons, the idea of universal salvation is a better selling point than denying the existence of the Trinity. For any person choosing between two heresies, it would be a more exciting prospect to jump into the universal salvation camp and defend that message than argue about the technicalities of God as one person or three. As for another contrast, these revivalists were commonly self-taught and spoke in common language, empathizing personal experience and connection with God over an individual creed. In fact, Hosea Ballou, the most well-renowned Universalist preacher, refused to let a Universalist divinity school be built during his lifetime. His belief was that unlettered preachers let the Universalists succeed, and that formal theological training would evade the plain testament of Jesus. This focus on oneness with God and personal revelation, regardless of education, allowed the class divide to dissipate in Universalist circles. In his book, The Pros and Cons of Universalism, circuit preacher George Rogers recounted a meal between worship services. Spread out on a common table, to which, without respect to rank or condition or opinion, all that might come and partake freely, without money and without price. All were on parity. All distinction of caste were lost sight of. All individualities were merged in the mass, and as one family, all rejoiced together in a common and glorious hope. In keeping with the theme of a classless faith, early Universalists shrugged off the patriarchal attitudes of the time, welcoming women in their ranks with open arms. Treated in true egalitarian fashion, women routinely served in official capacities as leaders, becoming delegates and ministers within the denomination. In their respective congregations and in religious periodicals, these women routinely discuss the plight of women and advance for the expansion of women's rights. Universalist record keeping was not as meticulous as their Unitarian counterparts, but small data sets in various congregations show that Universalist beliefs were held by all income brackets. As a whole, Universalists were middle class, but data shows that both extremes of the socioeconomic spectrum were represented. From sermon text and first-person accounts to public records, all retellings of early Universalist Christians are of living their faith in accordance with their beliefs of creating a classless society for the future. Circling back to our theme of widening the circle, I would like everyone to reflect on the following service. Are there any themes or attitudes that you see repeated throughout our history? Does any of this resonate with your experience with Unitarian Universalism on a personal level? And if so, how can we eliminate unhelpful attitudes or class barriers to truly make this church for all? I would like for today's service to be a springboard for future conversations about the way class can interfere with people's interest in the UU. I'm not here to pontificate or give hard and fast rules about class relations. I simply want an ongoing conversation about how to improve HVUUC and the UUA as a whole. And that can't be done without checking our personal biases on class. With that in mind, I have no particular advice for the congregation besides emphasizing our need for each other. In a faith like ours, where creeds aren't set and an afterlife isn't certain, we rely on each other to carry the church with us. When the meaning of the church body goes from ethereal to physical, it becomes clear that it's up to us to steer this faith in the right direction. Thank you. These words are for the chalice extinguishing entitled Kindle New Sparks. We have basked in the warmth and beauty of this flame and this community. As the chalice flame is extinguished, let us carry its glow within. Let us kindle new sparks within these walls and beyond.
So welcome today. Thank you for your attendance and your being here, and it's been a pleasure to guide you through today. And thank you to Sophia. Our closing hymn is number 1018. Rachel will do the honors for us.
Come and go
May we go out into this world with awareness of our own possible class biases. I offer you a challenge. Instead of dismissing what you hear, spoken with local Appalachian accents, respect the message delivered both for the lyrical and musical patois as well as content. Instead of wrinkling our noses at budget fare at potlucks, embrace gratitude for loving care and the gift of time someone put into sharing. Instead of assuming ignorance because someone isn't well-traveled, listen to the perspective. They can have a lot of wisdom to share. May we approach each other with curiosity and openness. May we offer love and respect. Yay! It starts!